Well, folks, here we are then. It's the start of July. Yojo June has come to an end. It's concluded. It is a fini for 2023. And there was an awful lot going on through the course of the Yojo June experience. So here I am to do a little bit of Yojo June wrap up with you, my dear, lovely Mod Extra Games and Collectibles viewing community. So a comprehensive overview of all the figures that were revealed and made available for pre-order. A little bit of chat from me, some opinion and commentary about the overall experience. And maybe, if there's time at the end, I'll throw in some extra thoughts about the Dragonfly HasLab as well. So stick around for 6 seconds. Let's talk up some Yojo June. Right, let's get straight into it then, folks, and I'm going to begin with a bit of conversation around the overall experience of Yojo June 2023. Now, I'm a big fan of the idea. I like that there's a month in the calendar that, as a G.I. Joe fan and a G.I. Joe Classified Series collector, there's just a space that is carved out, and it feels like it's just for me and just for the community I belong to, and we get some love and some attention from, let's face it, an organisation that we don't always necessarily feel like is giving us as consumers, as their customers, the love and attention that we deserve. And comparable to other lines, it's kind of nice to feel like this space is carved out for us, you know, and it's not attached or hung off anything else, any other kind of external ancillary stuff. So, Black Series structures itself around May the 4th, or there's a convention, like a comic book convention coming up, or like the Indiana Jones stuff that's just been announced. They really kind of leveraged the new movie release. Yojo June doesn't feel like that. It's just like, hey, G.I. Joe fans, there is a month in the calendar just for you. We're going to make it all about you, give you loads of dynamic energy and momentum and stuff to get excited about. And I'm really into that. There are some small prints and caveats to that, but overall, the experience is great. I'd also argue that the G.I. Joe Classified Series team have got a big part to play in the energy around that, making it the success that it is. I know they have their detractors out there, but Emily and Lenny are leaps and bounds ahead of any of the other Hasbro marketing and creative teams that they put in front of a camera. I recently watched, what have I watched recently? I watched the Marvel Legends stream this month in June. I watched the Indiana Jones stream in June, and I watched all of the video releases for G.I. Joe Classified. And it's like night and day. The Marvel guys and the Indiana Jones guys are fine, I suppose, but there's no energy, there's no dynamic. It's like it feels like there's no blood going to what they're doing. And Lenny and Emily have a much more natural on-camera presence. They appear to be much more authentic to me, at least my interpretation of what I'm seeing on the screen is more authentic. There's more laughter, there's more energy. Their voices have some pitch and some pace and some tone and some timbre to them. It doesn't feel like they've just wheeled out a couple of nerdy mannequins with moving mouths. It sounds awful, and I mean, no disrespect to like Dan Young and his team, or whatever that dude is over at Indiana Jones that seems so inauthentically excited about stuff all the time. So I know they've got their detractors, but I want to give props to Lenny and Emily in particular, because I just feel like they get it and they get us. And that is a huge contributing factor to the experience of Yojo June. And then, further to that, just the energy and the presence that they bring to what they're communicating just vibes with me really, really well, especially Lenny. My mate Eric said in the Discord chat the other day, Lenny is clearly just like living all of our childhood dreams right now. And I love him for it. I feel like he's definitely one of us, and I think that's wonderful. And, the videos are coming out week by week, and they're sharing information. I feel like one element this year that I particularly enjoyed that I saw on the Full Force podcast was the brand relations conference call thing that was recorded and shared. So it wasn't just new releases and, here's the new releases, get involved. There was some extra elements to the whole experience too, where we were getting some insights into the process that they go through, and getting some insights into the challenges that they're facing, and getting some insights into their view and vision for the line now and for the future, and that really added to my enjoyment of the Yojo June experience as well. I think that's great, that this little like opening of the door and this little look into what's going on in a space that we don't really tend to get much information about. And to be fair, Emily did say a number of times, well, we can't comment on that, or we're not permitted to talk about that today. And I get that. There has to be a water's edge to what they will reveal and how deeply they'll let us get involved as customers. But overall, it was just another part to this melting pot of Yojo June that really enhanced the experience for me. And then, just like another further layer to all that, that's what Hasbro was putting on: the videos, the new releases, the brand marketing, Q&A thing. That was all what Hasbro was putting out. But I've got to give a huge shout out to two communities that I lurk in a great deal, dip my toe in the conversation sometimes, over on the G.I. Joe Classified Series UK Collectors Facebook page and on the G.I. Joe Classified Series Discord group that I belong to. Because as this journey through the month was going on and all this energy and momentum was being felt from the waves that were coming out of Hasbro week on week, there was just these great communities that I belong to, where there was a lovely kind of atmosphere to the conversation, the excitement, the engagement that everybody was feeling around the Yojo June stuff. And I want to give a thank you to all those folks over in the UK Collectors Facebook page and all those folks in the G.I. Joe Classified Series online Discord group that I belong to, because it wasn't just that I was seeing this stuff to get excited about in the video releases, in the chats, and all that kind of energy that was building up around it. But I also had a great place to go to talk to people about it as well, and get involved and feel like I'm part of that wider community. And I think that really helped my overall experience. It's not all roses, though. There are some aspects to this. I said there were some small prints and caveats to come back to. We have to acknowledge, I think, the fact that it has been a relentless bombardment of figure pre-orders, and that maybe there could have been something else thrown into the mix to just flesh out the Yojo June experience. I seem to remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, it might have been PulseCon that this happened, but there was a little bit more stuff around the comic book lines, and a little bit more stuff, like the O-Ring fans didn't get nothing this year, and the Transformers collaboration felt like it was just a little bit of a tag on, an add-on, a little bit bolted into the side that didn't quite get some attention that I think maybe could have got more attention. And with the comic book stuff, it would have been a great opportunity to maybe do some previews or get some of the writers and artists over at Skybound. Is it Skybound? The Image comic, the Kirkman's imprint. But get Robert Kirkman on to talk about it or something. I don't know. It just felt like it was a relentless bombardment of, here's a new figure, pre-order it today at 1. Here's a new figure, pre-order it today at 1. Here's a new figure, pre-order it today at 1. And while I'm in this game to collect figures, let's not beat around the bush. I'm a huge acquisitive consumer, man-child who likes playing with G.I. Joe figures. That did start to become a little bit exhausting by the end. And there's a challenge for G.I. Joe Classified Series now, because all these pre-orders need to roll out in a consistent and well-structured manner. And some of the dates, it's all a bit random and the stuff clumped together, so it's a real pain on our wallets, which I know Hasbro don't care about. I mean, ultimately, we know that they're just this monolith of profit-making, and that's all they really care about. But it needs to have a good consistent pace, a good consistent structure. So reveal all these stuff, but then don't let the momentum die. Again, an observation on the Discord group was, we're all feeling a bit worn out now and overwhelmed, and our wallets are, crying and aching, but we'll all be complaining come September that we've not... there's nothing going on. It's dead quiet on G.I. Joe Classified Series. That is a challenge, and it has been, a big financial outlay. Thankfully, I've, structured the way I do my pre-orders that hopefully it won't be too painful and too noticeable by the wife. I mean, there is the Walmart thing and the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive coming up, so hopefully there will still remain that energy and momentum around it all. But they did say on the brand Q&A, the brand awareness Q&A thing, that 2023 they're just trying to get some ducks in a row and things should be better in 2024. Let's keep us fingers crossed that is the case, But that said, as far as the month went, there was good enthusiasm. It felt like it had some good vigor, and some dynamic and some passion behind it all, both from Hasbro, particularly Emily and Lenny, and the community. There looks to be lots of stuff to get excited about. They just go from strength to strength, in my opinion, when it comes to the figures. Time will tell whether we get... when they start arriving in hand, whether we've got the new Falcon in that mix. We'll have a closer look at the figures in a second. But yeah, I think it was a strong foot forward. It really is separating itself from the rest of the Hasbro field by an extraordinary distance. G.I. Joe Classified series has done a great job, I think, on Yo Joe June. But I'm always interested to hear what your thoughts are, so please do drop down in the comments below and give me a shout. Are your views reflective of mine? Do you disagree? Do you agree? Was there something you feel like I've not identified within that? Let me know. But now's the time to move on and talk specifically about the figures. So strap in, because we're going to go through a comprehensive whistle-stop tour of all the reveals that happened over Yo Joe June, and you're going to get my thoughts too, because, I'm an egomaniac and I think you want to hear them. All right, then, let's get into it and let's talk about the pre-order mania that was Yo Joe June. And according to the list that I've been keeping through the course of the month, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 figures that were revealed and made available for pre-order through the course of the month. That's not including the Dragonfly, of course, and the figures that are going to be thrown in with that. So the first on the list here, just incidentally, I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on today. I'll put it up here in my little, boxy thing, but I actually have, in hand, arrived, pre-order that I made at the outset of Yo Joe June, shipped. Here, look, there it is, the Arctic Bat. So keep your eye out on the channel, folks, because I've started recording my thorough review of the Arctic Bat, and I'll be sharing my thoughts, my more detailed thoughts there. So I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on that. But moving on, next on the list, we have got the Python Patrol Crimson Guard, which I think also has started to ship, but I haven't pre-ordered this one, which may be an indicator as to what some of my thoughts are on it. I just don't get the Python Patrol thing. It doesn't appeal to me at all. I said this with previous reveals of Python Patrol stuff. The colour schemes are just a bridge too far for me. I know I complain about the colour palette sometimes, but the colour schemes on the Python Patrol stuff is just a bridge too far for me. The Crimson Guard, I'm a guy who developed his love of Action Force and G.I. Joe through reading the comic books, so I'm much more interested in the classic look Crimson Guards. I've got one of each of the retro and the main line with the silver face mask and the black face mask, and that's perfect for me. Got an officer and a grunt, it's exactly what I want. The grey and the yellow just doesn't look right to me. I mean, the figure's called a Crimson Guard, and it's not crimson, except for a few splashes of red. There's not really much in the way of added value or transformation there that has warranted a decision on my part to pick one up. So even if I could find a way to love the colour scheme, there's nothing in it. It's just a repaint, of a literal straight up repaint. Even the weaponry and the accessories are the same, with just a few repainted elements. And yeah, I'm not on board. The Python Patrol stuff isn't turning me on. Tiger Force, I'm into that. But the Python Patrol stuff, nah. So this is a miss for me. It may appeal to some of you folks out there. And if it does, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts as to what it is about Python Patrol that switches you on. I suspect there's a nostalgia element for some folks who were around and collecting the original 3.75 figures at the time that Python Patrol was a thing, but I wasn't. So yeah, I've not pre-ordered this. I've given it a skip, but I think it's out there in hand. Some folks have already got it, certainly over here in the UK. Next up, we had Tiger Force Dusty, and again, I've not pre-ordered this guy, but fundamentally, I've got no issues with the figure whatsoever. I've already picked up a mainline Dusty. I'm quite happy with that. I generally don't buy repaints, as I say, unless there's something significant. You know, like the Arctic Bat's a great example of that, with the new weaponry, the new head mold, the different accessory range, all that kind of stuff. And the Arctic vibe was enough to draw me in. This really isn't. I'm quite Dusty is my desert dude. I've got a desert dude. The figure's the same, the accessory range is the same, and so I've kind of skipped this one. So even though the Tiger Force has kind of switched me on, I've not dived all in on Tiger Force. But if this is your cup of tea, and you'd rather a more kind of classic military green jungle aesthetic to your Dusty, jungle aesthetic to your Dusty, should he now be called Muddy, Leafy? I don't know. Maybe a name change needed. But yeah, he was a good figure when I reviewed it. You can take a look at the review on the channel. When I reviewed it, I was quite happy with Dusty. There was a few minor criticisms, but overall it was an enjoyable play experience, and I don't doubt that this would be the same. It's just, I'm just not one for buying repaints. So yeah, that one's fine if it switches you on. Just doesn't do it for me. I'm happy with me desert camo guy. This bad boy in the first wave though, the Tele-Viper on the Trubble bubble. Now that was where I got excited. Very, very excited about this one. And I think it looks great. So I've said in the past, regular viewers will know that, in fact I've alluded to it already in this video, that the comic books was where my love of G.I. Joe came from. I used to read the Marvel UK Action Force comic books and collect the figures off the back of that. That's my nostalgic source, my entry into the intellectual property. And then years later I started to explore the core, big Marvel G.I. Joe comics, and got really into that. But I didn't explore the cartoons till many, many years later, except for the Action Force. Well, over here we called it Action Force the movie, G.I. Joe the movie. And the Trubble bubbles were one of those kind of visual representations of Cobra to me, from their presence in the opening sequence, in particular, of the G.I. Joe movie. So, yeah, love it. And with the words going across the visor when Pythona was breaking into the Cobra bunker and all that stuff. So, loved it. But further to that, look at what you get for your money here. I'm loving the head swaps and the fact that we got 3 different heads, although they're not daft, are they, Hasbro? They're definitely looking to encourage some army building there, so you've got to buy 3 if you want one of each head on the go on the shelf. But loads of goodies in there. We've got gear for the figure itself, with the rifle and the backpack, which I'm a big fan of, and the Trubble bubble looks cool. And it's a great accessory to have in the what do they call it? The Prestige pack. I can't remember the names they called them. I'm flicking through my notebook here now to see when I made some notes about Snowjob when they revealed him a few months ago. But I can't remember whatever they called it. The higher price range Prestige pack. But the Trubble bubble is particularly attractive because when you compare it to the likes of, say, Serpentor or Dr. Mindbender or Scrap Iron, their gear, their vehicle-y, robot-y, petty thing is very specific to them. You're not going to be putting another classified series fig on Serpentor's chariot. You're only really ever going to... Well, I suppose you could pair up the Scrap Iron anti-armor drone with some other bits and bobs, in theory, but it looks at its best with Scrap Iron with it. Anyway, I'm rambling on, but I like the Trubble bubble because it's got potential. You could chuck your Baroness on it, chuck your Destro on it, chuck your Mindbender on it, and it would all work. It would work because through the cartoon series in particular, they all had to go on a Trubble bubble, you know what I mean? So the figure looks great to me. I love the face sculpt. Looks really exciting with those growls on the 2 ones where the face isn't completely obscured, but I kind of like the one with the visor too. Yeah, lots of added value, lots going on there. Very excited about this one. I'm loving the little landmine as well. It's got a great deal to attract a collector like me, and so I've gone in on it. Which takes us neatly into the figures of week 2, and the first figure from week 2 I want to take a look at is this Desert Gear Snake Eyes. Now, this I actually quite like. There's something about the colour scheme that I think is interesting. It's very visually interesting, very eye-catching. I like the orange colour across the visor and the different shades of brown and khaki on the uniform. I like the repaint of the sword, which has got this sort of orangey red sandy glow to it. It's all really lovely. I'm just not going to pick it up because... again, following my rule, I don't go for straight up repaints unless there's something about it that is going to replace or unless there's something about it that's going to replace the one I've already got that I've chosen to pick up, or there's a particular unique element that makes it of interest to me. And the fact is, I ain't ever displaying this one over the classic look black snake eyes that I've got. It's as simple as that. So I actually find it quite visually pleasing. The aesthetic looks good. It looks interesting. And Dusty could do with some desert camo buddies on the shelf for sure. But it's not one I've chosen to go for because, you know, who displays anything other than a classic ninja-looking snake eyes in the black gear? I don't get it. I really don't get it. Then in week 2, it was the Cobra eel, and this has proven to be a very popular figure from what I can gather, round and about in the community, looking at posts that folks have been making on the socials about this fig. I've not gone for it. I've said in the past that the nautical, aquatic folks are not particularly of interest to me. I just feel like it doesn't work, doesn't fit with the type of displays that I like to keep on my shelves, and doesn't kind of fit with the sort of photography and pickies that I like to take with my figures. So I skipped Torpedo, and I'll be skipping the Cobra eel. Good thing too, because I couldn't get one if I wanted one now. This is definitely the sort of army builder that folks have hoovered up in volume as much as they can get their hands on, which is fine, I suppose. Looking at it, I can see that it is a scuba geared Cobra trooper that's got a bit of a mean look in his eye and is going to be getting up to no good under the sea. The flippity flops, what are they called? The flippers? Flippity flops? I don't know. The underwater breathing apparatus looks great. The harpoon gun, it's got all that vibe to it. You can definitely put together your own G.I. Joe version of the scuba diver battle under the sea. What was that? That was Thunderball, I think, off the top of my head. So yeah, if you're into all that stuff, you can do so. I've definitely seen folks doing some really interesting photography with Torpedo. The Cobra eels are going to tie into that. But, you know, I'm on a budget. I've made a decision about how I want my displays to look, and so I've skipped the Cobra eel, but I don't fundamentally see anything wrong with it. Although, what I will say is that there were a couple of folks that I saw posting pictures who've really zoomed in and conducted a very fine detailed inspection of the figure, and there looks like some shaky things going on with the knees and one of the shoulders or something, if I remember right, which is concerning. You'd think their marketing model that they're using would be a perfect one, but there you go. So Cobra eels, good fig, just not for me. The third and final figure of week 2, though, was definitely for me, and I went straight in on this one as soon as I could because it was Tunnel Rat, and he looks brilliant. Very, very happy to see Tunnel Rat join the line. Very, very happy with the design that they revealed. It's just got everything I want from a Tunnel Rat, and I know some folks have got a few criticisms or concerns about it, but I'm all in. I'm all in. Love the look of this guy. He's got the uniformal kind of military appearance and colour scheme in the palette, and that's fine, although I do like some stuff a little bit more idiosyncratic sometimes, but he's got enough character and flavour of his own to separate him from the crowd and give him a distinctive look and feel, which I'm very, very pleased about. You know, the headwear, the weaponry, all that kind of gear, and his gear all really just gives him his own distinctive identity, which I particularly enjoy. The knee pads and the different look trousers for tunnel ratting and all that. So very pleased. The night vision goggles look great. I'm really pleased to see the revolver as well. I like when new weapons come along that add a little bit of flavour and diversity to the weapon selection that's going on our figures and in the bits box. Yeah, he's just got it all. Got the big rucksack. He's got the torches and the night vision gear because that's what he does. I just think Tunnel Rat is looking really, really cool, and I think he'll fit in really great with the type of stuff that I like to do with my G.I. Joe Classified series display in the day. But yeah, loving it. The revolver going in a chest holster, cross-draw holster, got his little knapsack, all the paint applications look great, the neckerchief, yeah, everything about this guy stood out to me. And of course, as I said before, my main introduction into animated G.I. Joe was the G.I. Joe movie, and Tunnel Rat was, of course, a key figure in that series there. But what we could do with is a big lob, of course. We need a big lob to go with our Tunnel Rat now. But yeah, I definitely pre-ordered this guy. Very excited. Looking forward to getting him in hand and getting him reviewed for you guys. Right then, that takes us into week 3. And week 3 was a big week for me. I've pre-ordered all 3 of the figures in this wave here because there was something about all 3 of them that excited me and I enjoyed particularly. And I'm going to start with this guy here, Grunt, who I know, for some folks out there in the community, it was a bit like, meh, yeah, Grunt, looks like a standard troopery dude, whatever. But I really, really, really like this figure. I can't explain it, and it seems so counterintuitive to my comments about the line sometimes, because he is just a dude in a straight-up green military set of gear. You know what I mean, with a helmet. But this, I actually really quite like him. There's a few things that stand out to me, I suppose, that are switching me on. The sculpt detail, if the figure in hand is as good as the photography and the digital render is making it out to be. I'm loving all the stuff we've got going on the chest here and the helmet details and all that. That just actually really stands out to me. And I don't think the head sculpt was as bland and as boring as some in the community have observed and said, they feel around it. It's definitely not a Falcon, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm kind of really into that. I'm hoping very much that if you take a look at the packaging, in fact, I'll put it on screen there now. I'm hoping very much, if you look at the packaging, the contrast between the green uniform and the brown, gear and whatnot that's strapped up all around him is quite prominent, quite significant. So it's my hope that the figure, the two contrasting colours, because I think the shot of him on the cover of the box looks really awesome. And although if you take a good close look at some of the photography, I suppose that's possibly not the case, but that's my hope anyway. But the other thing about Grunt that really stood out to me that got me excited, to the point where I even considered buying multiples of him, is the classic cartoon laser rifle. I think that's a really lovely touch to throw in. It was about time we saw it in the mix, in the line. It's just a lovely little nostalgic nod to the fans of the cartoon, and even someone like me who's not a big cartoon guy, although I'm a much bigger cartoon guy now because I've rewatched them all recently. All the Sunbows. Yeah, nice to see that. But I also like the classic look M16 rifle. In fact, I'm probably going to repurpose that M16 and pop it on someone like Stalker. Go for that Vietnam vet vibes. Yeah, great selection of gear. You can already hear my mind turning around how I can use that gear, both with Grunt and with other figures in the line. I think just a good, solid looking Grunt, a good solid soldier boy. And if the contrast in the browns and greens is just a bit more along the side of the packaging is implying, then I'll be very happy with this figure, I think. Yeah. But I get why some people are like, he's a bit boring, a bit bland. Oh, and he's got the fancy helmet thing. I'm less interested in that, to be honest, though. The fancy helmet thing's a bit meaningless to me. The Steel Brigade bit, I'll have him in his more traditional headgear. Then it was this guy, Lowlight. This was the figure that I think really, really got some energy and excitement from some corners of the community, because he's a very well-loved classic G.I. Joe character that folks have been waiting for. And not only have they got this well-loved character that they want to have as part of their collection, but I think that looking at the design and the marketing photos of the in-hand figure, that they've done a good job of it as well, which is an important part of that story. It's not just that you're getting the character you love and you've wanted in the line, but you're also getting a good version of the character. And there's a lot to like about this lowlight. Obviously, the classic visual characteristics like the beanie hat and the goggles and the blonde hair that we all associate with lowlight from the comic book and the cartoon is there with his grey overalls. Overalls? Is that the word? I don't know, but his grey uniform for sneaking around in the dark to take his shots. I love this idea of his sniper rifle carry case and that the gun can be taken apart and put into the various slots in the case. That's got loads of diorama and photography and display potential to make it feel like there's something a little bit different going on. It's not just a classic action pose. Although the sniper rifle has come under some criticism, I'm a little less bothered by this, but I know some folks who are, because it's looking a little bit more modern and perhaps even futuristic. I don't know if it's a real sniper rifle or not, and I believe some in the community wanted something a little bit more old school classic, with the massive scope that you more traditionally saw low light equipping himself with back in the day. But it looks like there's some lovely paint applications in there with buckles and a few splashes of colour there and thereabouts, with the grenades, and he's got the red shoulder pad piece. One thing that I'm curious about, and I think many others will be also, is whether we can get him in a good solid prone sniper pose. Get the bipod out on the sniper rifle and get the head back enough that he can be looking down the scope sights. I tried to do it with... Who did I try and do it with? Well, there's two figures I've tried to do it with, actually. I tried to do it with Dusty, and I tried to do it with Rock and Roll with that big, heavy machine gun, and I couldn't quite get the head, even with the chest articulation, couldn't quite get it. So I'd be interested to know whether they've done anything engineering-wise to get Lowlight's head more. And I thought it was curious that in the marketing imagery, unless there's been one that I've missed, but I thought it was curious that in the marketing imagery there wasn't anything showing him in a sort of traditional prone sniper's pose. But no, we'll see on that front. But I've definitely pre-ordered him. He's certainly someone I would want in my collection. I think he's a lovely bit of flavour to the colour palette of the G.I. Joe Classified, the G.I. Joe side of the G.I. Joe Classified series display. The little submachine gun is a nice touch. I think the goggles look great. Yeah, he's got it all going on. I think Lowlight is a good fig, and I'm looking forward to having him in my collection. Yeah, so finally on week 3, we had this guy here, the Snow Serpent. And I will confess that when I first saw it, I was in two minds. I was a little bit like, I don't know. I don't know about this one. Now, the reason for that is that I'm not a fan of this timber, cloak, cape thing and headrest. Not a fan of that concept at all. I don't like the way it looks in some of the promotional images. In fact, the one that really puts me off, I'll put up on screen here now. Yeah, I don't like the way it looks. There's just something about it that's not sitting right with me. I feel like it looks too plasticky, maybe, or something. I don't know, but it's not working for me at all. Which, because it was such a key feature of the way they were pitching the figure, I was like, nah, I'm probably not going to pre-order that. But then when I went back and had another look at the pickies and the pre-order went up and there was more kind of promotional material of the figure, I was like, yeah, do you know what? I do actually want this figure. I've let myself become a little bit too wrapped up in the timber thing and not enough in the Snow Viper itself. Snow Serpent itself, sorry. I like the headgear, although I don't get why there's goggles to go over the goggles. That seems a bit mysterious to me, why you need goggles to go over the goggles, but perhaps the meaning of that will become more clear in time. But the weapon selection is good. He's got a bit of a rifle, he's got a little submachine gun, a couple of pistols, the bazooka, obviously. A reuse of Bazooka's bazooka and the bazooka backpack. And I seem to remember the Snow Serpent having like a mortar, like a mortar setup, which I suppose I would have preferred, actually, for a bit of variety in the weapon selection. But I've fundamentally got no objections to the bazooka and the rocket pack thing. I liked it on bazooka, so that's fine, I suppose. But the snow boots and the snowboard in particular, and when I saw that the snowboard had a bit of a Cobra pattern insignia, spray painted on the underside of the snowboard as well, I was like, ooh, I like that. And there was a photo of it with the with the wolf cape on, but not the headrest, and that looked a bit better. And I don't know. Anyway, just upon further inspection and a little bit of reflection, I was like, yeah, do you know what? I do actually want this figure. I'm going to get it because there's a lot to like. And I'm into the landy-based stuff. Not into the nautical stuff, but into the landy-based stuff. And I don't have to put that wolf headrest on at all. You know, the one of the beauties of G.I. Joe Classified, and they've really nailed it with this figure, is that there's choice. You know, I've got choice. There's options in that added value for me as to what type of display pictures I want to take with him. So I've got in, and that's the 3 for 3 on that week's wave, all over it. So there you go. Yeah, there's week 3. Oof, wow, this is getting a long video. I'm going to pick up the pace here a little bit, but I should get through this final week, the 4th wave of Yojo June, pretty quickly. There were 3 figures revealed. Check your list. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 figures revealed here, and I've only pre-ordered. No, I pre-ordered 2 of the 3, but I'm a bit on the fence of one of them. So let's talk about the one I've not pre-ordered first. Get that out of the way. The Crimson Viper. Just not bothered. Not that one on the head. I've mentioned already this video, I don't like repaints if there's nothing particularly new or interesting or inspiring about the repaint. You know, I need a more unique element to drive me towards picking up a figure of that nature. I don't like the grey weaponry that they've included. I think that looks rubbish. I'm more than happy with my classic looking Viper. That's all I need, all I'll ever want. And if they ever do an improvement to the figure, then yeah, I'll be in. But yeah, the Crimson Viper's not for me. I'm not into all this kind of driving of the crimson stuff that they're doing. Then it was Nunchuck. Now this is the one I'm a little bit on the fence about because I can't decide if I like this figure or not. I certainly enjoy that whole sort of section of G.I. Joe lore that's the you know, the martial arts type stuff. I've talked about this in the past before. I like that idea that there's these different spaces of narrative spaces that they've explored, and the martial arts area is definitely one that switched me on as a kid. I mean, we all love ninjas, don't we? It's just such a classically 80s thing, the ninjas. We're all into ninjas if we grew up in the 80s. And so I'm into all that, and I'd like to expand that space a bit there with my Storm Shadow, my Snake Eyes, my Red Ninja, hopefully in the future things like a Quick Kick and what have you. But there's just something about the aesthetic of this figure that doesn't sit right with me. I can't put my finger on what it is. I don't know, but I think the camouflage-looking ninja gear with the black over the top of it's not working for me. Like it needed a different colour or something. I honestly don't know. I've thought about it, and I thought before I record the video, let's try and pin down what this challenge is visually that you have with Nunchuck, and I can't figure it out. It just doesn't quite appeal to me visually as much as other figures have, and there's something not quite switching me on, and I can't explain it. And if you can offer me some sort of insight in the comments down below as to what it might be about Nunchuck that's not sitting right with me, then I welcome your contribution. Help me understand where I'm coming from there. But there's loads to like. This idea of a ninja in kind of military camo gear is fun. I like that he's kind of a bit of a Storm Shadowy repaint, but there's enough new elements on there to give him some unique flavour, some unique character of his own. The weapon selection looks really interesting with the Wolverine-style claws and the curved blades and the nunchucks and stuff. There's a lot to like, and there's a lot that I feel he could add to the martial artsy section of my display. So yeah, I have pre-ordered it. It may get cancelled closer to the time. I'm still wavering. I'll invite you to convince me in either direction. Help me get off the fence on that one, folks. And so the final figure of week 4 and the final figure of the Yojo June experience was this guy here, Firefly. And I like this guy. I'm in. I'm definitely pre-ordering this dude and going to be looking forward to getting him in hand. I skipped the first Firefly. There was something about that one that just didn't quite appeal to me. I didn't like all the big, explosive, you know, Hurt Locker style protective gear. That didn't feel right. Didn't feel true to the character as I remembered him in the comic books that I used to read. I felt like Firefly was more, more of a risk taker, more of a gambler in tone. You know what I mean? A little bit more rough and dangerous around the edges, and all that protective gear didn't feel right, and also the limits on the articulation and such like. So I didn't go in, but then when I saw this version that feels much more like the visual aesthetic, it hit the nostalgia bone in me. I was like, yeah, that's how Firefly used to look in the comic books that I used to read. So I've gone in on this, definitely on board with that. I like the gear as well, the little landmines, the little radio controlled car thing. That looks really fun. The night vision goggles. I'm a little on the fence about the face sculpt. The head's got a bit of a kind of it looks a bit animated, a bit sort of computer gamey, Fortnite-y in style that I'm not so sure about. But yeah, if you squint and get in close and have a good look at the picture, I think in hand that'll be less of an issue. I feel like the eyes, that space there, as they often do with G.I. Joe Classified, is that they've really nailed communicating an expression and personality through that space there. And I think in hand it'll feel less like a Fortnite cartoon character and more like a solid Firefly. I've seen others share that view around and about on the socials, and it seems like there's a bit of an intention to do a head swap with the other Firefly figure. I don't have the other Firefly figure to do that, so if I'm not happy with the head sculpt, I'll just have to live with it. But the overall look and feel and offering in terms of added value looks really good to me, very positive, and I'm happy to have a Firefly in my collection because it was a character that I skipped by choice because I had budgetary constraints, and I had to knock one on the head and he didn't feel right to me, but I kind of regretted it, and now I'm glad that there's one that just gets me in the nostalgia feels, really into this one. So yeah, happy to see Firefly on the list for sure. And there we go then, folks. That brings me to the end of my Yojo June wrap-up thoughts here on the Mod Extra Games and Collectibles channel. And again, I'll reiterate, get down in the comments down below. I've asked a few questions through the course of this vid, but obviously the big one is let me know what you thought about Yojo June and where you're at with it. I know it's been a long video, so thank you so very much for those of you who stuck it out to the end and reached this point. Don't forget, you can join the channel, you can send over super thanks, and of course, you can become a subscriber. I know that a good 80% of the viewers of my channel are not subscribed currently right now, so take a moment, hit that button down below. It takes you just a minute, but it means ever so much to me. You can't understand how much it means to me when I see that subscriber number go up, and it's an absolute joy and a pleasure to be making these videos, and that's like the most powerful piece of feedback that you can give me. So please do subscribe to the channel if you're not already done so. I'm going to wrap it up there. I've got the Arctic Bat review on its way soon, so keep an eye out for that. And then there's some other stuff on the channel on its way as well, although it'll be a bit of a detour. Got some McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse stuff coming down the pipeline as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with me here today. I know there's so many channels you could be watching, and you've chosen to watch mine. And so thank you very much. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you around these parts again sometime soon. See you later, folks.